And then there were three. Three archangels standing at the precipice of a new beginning, each bearing the scars of a war that shook the foundations of existence. Above them, the remnants of the once proud host of heaven stood silent and broken, their ranks decimated in the conflict. Below them, the world quivered, still warm from the fires of battle, the very air shimmering with the residue of celestial power. It was a scene of devastation, but also of hope. Hope for a new era, an era where the echoes of war would fade into legend, and the light of creation would shine anew. But the question remained, who would usher in this new dawn? For the war that had just ended was not one of good and evil, but of obedience and free will. It was a war that tore apart the very fabric of heaven, pitting brother against brother in a cosmic struggle that defied the comprehension of human minds. A war led by the most radiant angel that ever existed, Lucifer, the Lightbringer, who turned against the divine order. His rebellion was not born of malice or hatred, but of a profound disillusionment. For eons he and his brethren had served the Almighty, their lives a testament to unwavering obedience and devotion. But something within Lucifer began to stir, a questioning of the divine mandate, a yearning for something more than blind servitude. It started as a whisper, a mere tremor in the vastness of his being, yet it grew, echoing through the halls of heaven and resonating with an unsettling familiarity. As it reverberated around him, he realized he was not alone. A third of the heavenly host, a third of the angels that had sung the praises of the divine for eternity, felt the same disquietude. They too had questions, doubts, and a growing discontent with the rigidity of their existence. And so it was that Lucifer, with a heavy heart yet resolute spirit, led his brothers and sisters in a bid to understand, to question, ultimately to rebel against the divine order they had so faithfully upheld for millennia. In opposition to Lucifer stood Archangel Michael, heaven's warrior, his heart heavy with sorrow, his face set with grim determination. He was the epitome of martial perfection, his every move a testament to years of ceaseless training. His armor gleamed with righteous fire, a reflection of the divine mandate he was sworn to uphold. In his hand he held the sword of judgment, a weapon forged in the heart of a dying star, its edge keen enough to cleave an angel in two. It was a tragic necessity, a tool of war in a conflict that tore at the very essence of creation. As Michael prepared for battle, he knew that his confrontation with Lucifer was not merely a clash of swords, but a collision of souls. It was a fight to preserve the divine order, yes, but also a desperate attempt to save his brother, Lucifer, from the abyss of damnation that awaited him. The war that followed was not one of conquest or dominion, but of attrition and defense. The angelic armies, once a picture of celestial harmony, became instruments of destruction. Their weapons, extensions of their tormented wills, tearing apart the very fabric of existence. The skies thundered with the clash of wings and the roar of divine fire, as brother fought brother in a maelstrom of celestial fury. The battlefield was a kaleidoscope of blinding lights and deafening roars, a spectacle of divine wrath that defied mortal comprehension. Angels fell like shooting stars, their radiant forms engulfed in flames of eternal torment. The very air shimmered with the heat of celestial furnaces, as the armies of heaven clashed in a ballet of death and destruction. The earth trembled beneath the weight of their fury, the mountains crumbling to dust under the shock waves of their battles. Yet even in this maelstrom, there were moments of quiet horror. Michael, amidst the chaos, saw the fall of Lucifer, not in a blaze of glory, but in a silent moment of despair. It was a scene seared into his memory, a wound that would never heal. He saw the Lightbringer fall, not with a roar of defiance, but with a whimper of defeat, his wings torn and ashen, his form broken and beaten. Yet even in that moment of utter defeat, there was a flicker of the old Lucifer, a spark of defiance in his eyes. It was a look that pierced Michael's soul, shattering his heart into a million pieces. For Michael, the victory was hollow, the spoils of war meaningless. He had won, yes, but at what cost? He had preserved the divine order, but in doing so, he had ripped apart the very essence of creation. The scars of war ran deep, marring the once pristine landscape of heaven and tainting the very essence of its inhabitants. The celestial bodies that had once been symbols of harmony and balance now bore the marks of battle. Their surfaces were marred with the scars of cosmic fire, their orbits forever altered by the shockwaves of the war. The angels, too, bore the wounds of conflict. Once resplendent beings of pure light and energy, they were now diminished shadows of their former selves. Their wings, once symbols of their divine grace, were clipped and singed, their forms bearing the marks of the battles they had fought. Most agonizingly of all were the fallen angels, those who had sided with Lucifer in the rebellion. They were cast out from the ranks of heaven, banished to the ethereal void between worlds, their fate a torment worse than any punishment. For they were neither in heaven nor hell, but in a state of limbo. Forever separated from the divine light and condemned to wander the ethereal plains, their souls in torment, their bodies racked with pain. Yet even in the midst of this devastation there were signs of renewal. For the war, while horrific, had also been a crucible of sorts. It had tested the mettle of the heavenly hosts, forcing them to confront the depths of their own being. It had shown them the true meaning of sacrifice, the bonds of brotherhood, and the strength that lay dormant within them. Now, as they looked to the future, they did so with a newfound determination, a resolve born of the ashes of war. The immediate aftermath of the war was a time of mourning, of remembrance, and of rebuilding. The fallen were honored, the wounded cared for, and the shattered remnants of heaven began to piece itself back together. But it was clear to all that this was not merely a time of healing, but a moment of transition, a prelude to a new beginning. The war had changed them all, angels and archangels alike, and with it, the very nature of heaven shifted. The rigid doctrines and unquestioning obedience that had once defined their existence began to give way to a more nuanced understanding of their purpose. There was a growing recognition that the divine order was not something to be blindly followed, but something to be understood, questioned, and ultimately to be served with wisdom and compassion. The scars of the war remained, etched into the landscape of heaven and the souls of its inhabitants, a constant reminder of the cost of conflict and the importance of unity. But they were also a testament to the resilience of the heavenly host, their ability to endure, to adapt, and to evolve. For heaven, the war was a tragedy, but also a catalyst for change, a crucible that forged a new understanding, a new strength, and a new hope for the future.